business. Well as overcoming these problems, of course. In short, something we can never learn in textbooks. We are sure that you're all eager to hear Mr. Dickinson himself, and we hope you will enjoy his talk.
Pre nego što gospodin Dickinson započne izlaganje, obratit će nam se rektor Univerziteta Metropolitan, profesor dr. Dragan Domaz. Izvolite, profesor.
Ja neću ništa da pričam, gospodin Dickinson će govoriti. Ja prvo da vas pozdravim i zahvalim što ste svi došli u ovakvom broju. Ovo je početak malo češćih dovođenja ljudi iz biznisa da nam pričaju svoje iskustva, jer mi u akademskoj sredini smo malo zatvoreni, udubljeni u naše istraživanja, udžbenike, nastava, a realan život je nešto vrlo često dosta različito i svaku priliku koju imamo da dovedemo ovako uglednog privrednika, biznismena, da nam nešto kaže, mi ćemo iskoristiti. Ovom prilikom se zahvaljujem i moje čerki, malo smo zloupotrebili nju, što je dovela svog direktora. Ali to je lekcija, nema biznisa bez veza. Mi ćemo to iskoristiti i eto, imamo čoveka iz prve ligije biznisa. Vi znate da je firma Kraft jedna od najvećih svetskih proizvođača hrane. Ja kad sam živio u Americi, bila je velika fabrika Krafta u Illinoisu gde sam bio i tad sam video i u svim samoуslugama prodaju sve i svašta. Ovo što se ovde prodaje, to je jedan vrlo mali segment njihovog proizvoda, tako da od takvih firmi može mnogo da se nauči. A ova je tema posebno interesantna. Svi mi volimo da pričamo o uspehama, ovo sam uradio, ono sam uradio, a čutimo gde smo pogrešili. A pametni ljudi uče iz grešaka. Zato da čujemo kako se uči iz grešaka. Tako da i kad grešimo, da budemo u dobitku. To je što se. Da uvek dobiješ. Praktično da nikad i ne gubiš. Prema tome, da čujemo gospodina Dickinsona šta ima da nam kaže, svoje savete iz iskustva, i mislim da je to glavna dobit za sve nas, a pogotovo za vas mlađe studente pred kojima je život. Nije sve to tako lako u životu, morate da se spremite i za neuspehe, ali iz njih da izađete što jače. Tako da je svrha ovog predavanja i ovog razgovora ta. Normalno, ovde se očekuje i diskusija i pitanja, bilo ovde, bilo kasnije za vreme jednog koktela, tako da pokažemo mu da imamo dosta pitanja. Mislim da treba iskoristiti svaki dolazak. Ja kad sam bio student, bio sam jako dosadan, stalno sam pitao nekoj predaju, ali šta im radim, to im je posao. Prema tome treba ih koristiti maksimalno. Mr. Dickinson, the floor is yours. Once again, thank you very much for giving your talk today. I hope that we'll have a very good discussion after that. Please.
I understood only a part of that. Dobroveče. That will be my only Serbian for tonight, I'm afraid. I will explain in a few moments why I chose the title Mistakes and Learnings as the theme for this talk. But before I say anything about that, anyone nervous? Good answer. Actually, I can think of two people who might be a little bit nervous. One of them is Vesna, because she's here with her boss, her boss's boss. Actually, maybe a couple of the HR people will come along later, and her father and mother are here, and her husband. So, if anything goes wrong, she's going to feel very nervous, but I'm sure it won't. And the second person who's a bit nervous is me. You might not be able to tell, but I am. I've not spoken like this before, so just to manage expectations, you won't get a professional talk. Okay, so any of you who've watched those kind of talks on TED or YouTube or whatever, you won't get anything like that. So very low key, very relaxed. There'll be the opportunity, I think you just heard, to ask questions, both at the end of this group session and also in a more, more relaxed format later on. So Vesna, thank you very much for fixing me up. I'm sure you understand the double entendre there. So, next question. I like asking questions. Any of you made a mistake today? Anyone want to put their hand up?
I did.
Okay, Slavista, tell me, what mistake?
I tried to clean my car. That was a huge mistake. So after I learned it, I took a cab and went to the job.
Anybody else make a mistake?
No problem.
Okay, let me put it another way. Maybe you'd like to admit to this. If you started today again, is there something that you'd do differently? You would like to volunteer? You didn't expect this, did you? That you might have to actually talk and me not talk. Anyone, if they started today again, they'd do something differently? And I'm not going to ask you, Slavic.
I'd wake up early.
You'd wake up early, and why would you do that?
So that I could seize the day.
So that you could seize the day. Very good. Okay. Let me start with a couple of definitions. Not that I think you don't understand English, but just to kind of be clear on what I understand and what I think is important about mistake, and I'll come on and talk about learning. So, as it says in the Oxford Dictionary, which for those of you who don't know is always where I go for any definition in the English language, a mistake is an act or judgment that is misguided or wrong. Maybe at the end of tonight you'll think that coming here was a mistake. Sorry? You will see. Maybe I'll think it was a mistake to come here tonight. We'll see. And what I'd emphasize is the word judgment. Okay? So a mistake is often around the judgment that we make. Talk about learning. Actually, I'm sure you all do a lot of learning here. That's what I'm told. The acquisition of knowledge or skills through study, and here I'll emphasize experience, or being taught. So, learning from experience. And that's really what I'm going to talk about tonight, some of the learnings from my experience in business that have really come out of making mistakes. And a couple of better people than me have commented on the value of making mistakes. I'm sure you've all heard of Albert Einstein. If you haven't, then I don't know where you've been. A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. So if you don't try something new, you rarely have the opportunity to make a mistake. All men make mistakes, but only wise men learn from their mistakes. We all know who Winston Churchill was. And I think that talks to something I often say in business. It's not wrong to make a mistake. It's wrong to make the same mistake twice, because then you haven't displayed that you've had that ability to learn from the mistake. And I'll talk about some examples from my experience where I have to confess I've definitely made the same mistake twice, and probably 3 times. So a few words about me. I think it was on the sheet that was handed out, but at least so you then know who's standing here talking to you. So I'm the managing director. Some people call me a general manager of actually a company called Mondelez International, and I'll explain a little bit about who that is, a company, because Kraft Foods, Mondelez International, who are they? Yeah, I'll explain a little bit about that in a moment. I know I only look 25, but I'm afraid I've been working for 35 years, or nearly 35 years. 25 of those with Kraft or Mondelez International. I've worked in supply chain, that's where I started my career. Didn't last long in supply chain, then worked in market research, then worked in marketing, then worked in sales, then went back to marketing and went abroad to Turkey, which was my first time away from the UK. You can tell I'm British. Then moved to Vienna, worked in marketing there, then moved to Russia, then moved back to Vienna, working in strategy, and for the last about 5 years I've been responsible for the business unit that manages what if you'll let me say it, it's called business unit that manages former Yugoslavia and Albania. So I won't get caught on how many countries that is. A few facts on Mondelez International. So Mondelez International was a company that actually was formed on October the 2nd this year. It was formed as Kraft Foods split into two companies. One, a company called Kraft Foods that now manages our North American, I'll call it cheese and grocery business, and then Mondelez International. Locally, we are still known as Kraft Foods, just to make it even more confusing for you. What will become a little bit clearer when I show some of the brands that we're responsible for. So as a company, we've got a revenue of about $36 billion globally. We are a snacks business, so chocolate, biscuits, coffee, gum, candy, those kind of products. We operate in more than 80 countries globally. We're the #1 company globally for biscuits, for chocolate, for candy, and for powdered beverages. Powdered beverages are like Sedavita. You all know what Sedavita is, yeah? And we're #2 in the world in gum and coffee. We've got about 100,000 employees, of which so far 3 are sitting in this room. No more at the moment. Since '97, as Kraft Foods, now Mondelez, we've donated over 1 billion food servings. Often it's after kind of emergency reliefs for major disasters and things like that. By the way, if I speak too quickly in English, just slow me down, you know? But hopefully it's clear enough. These are some of our brands. We have many more brands than the ones you see on there. Actually, in my time, I've counted that I've actually worked on 20 of them in some shape or form. Either been in meetings discussing them or actually had responsibility. So we're now up to 4 Mondelez International employees. Welcome, Maria. I've no idea how many of those you've tried, but I hope you've tried a few of those. These are the brands that we actually sell and market within the business unit that I'm responsible for. So Milka, I hope you're all very loyal consumers to Milka. You will be after tonight. Barney, Jacobs, Trident, which we don't sell here in Serbia, we sell in Croatia, which is a brand of gum. Oreo, which is the world's #1 cookie or biscuit. Toblerone, which I'm sure many of you have tried, and Halls, which we also don't sell in this market, we sell in Slovenia. So those are the brands that the people within the business unit are responsible for. I think, if you've got any questions on biscuits, coffee, gum or candy, I'll slap it to Vesna later on. They might even answer some questions on chocolate. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about some personal experiences. I've made many mistakes in my career, I'm pleased to admit it, and I'll talk to you actually about what I call 4 good ones. Yeah? Vesna knows, because I asked her this question in an interview when I was interviewing. It's one of my standard questions, which is, what's the best mistake you've ever made? Which I always like as a question. It gets people to think. You can always, in case you ever come to an interview with us, you'll now be thinking, think about that one. Because, you know, good mistakes are those that you can pull the learning from. Yeah? So I'm going to talk about 4 short stories about 4 good mistakes that I've made, and I'll try and pull out the learnings that have come from those. So, let me turn to the first story. It goes as far back as 1984, which was, I started work in 1980, well, proper work, I did some student jobs before then, but, sorry, I'm not saying that student jobs aren't proper jobs. So I started work in 1983, and in 1984, how many of you were born before 1984? Yeah, there's a few people not wanting to admit to that. So the majority of you weren't born in 1984, but 1984 was the year of the apple. And let me pause from the PowerPoint and I'm sure you may know. Can you all hear me if I just talk? We'll do without the microphone, it's okay. Not that I'm going to talk to this way. So, 1984. This is a film that I'm sure many of you have seen.
See why 1984 won't be like 1984.
Now I know that you use Apple computers here, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Any of you not seen that TV commercial before?
No.
You saw at the start, that was aired once, and that launched Apple. One of the best TV commercials ever, complete breakthrough. But that's not the story I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about that Apple. I'm going to talk, oh, we've gone back to the start, so we'll stop being nervous. We're going to talk about this apple. I'll come and kind of lounge here for a little bit. This is a brand called Kiri. It's a sparkling apple juice, and it was also launched in 1984. And it was the first brand that I ever did any marketing on. So the story starts in 1984. It actually starts in the west of England, in a small city called Hereford. Lovely little city, out in the country, definitely not like a big city life. A an area of the countryside surrounded by fields full of apples, and a company called Bulmers, who are the leading cider company in the world. Do any of you know what cider is? Yeah. It is not Somersby. Those of you who know cider is Somersby. That is not cider. Yeah? Cider is made from real apples, yeah, that are fermented and made into alcohol. That is not what Somersby is. But I'm sure some of you like Somersby. You know, this company that had all these fields of apples wanted to do something that wasn't about an alcoholic apple drink, which is what cider is, but wanted to have a non-alcoholic apple drink, which is what this is, kiri. It's just apple juice that's been made sparkling. So they launched in 1984. The launch went pretty well. It was launched with some fairly simple advertising, which is actually what this is a visual from. And they simply stuck a sparkler, if you know what a sparkler is like in fireworks, into an apple, sparkling apple juice. Very simple. But like any company, they wanted to grow their sales a little bit more, or a lot more. The advertising agency were very persuasive, and they persuaded Bulmers and this company that they needed new advertising to really kind of make an impact. They needed to spend more money, because that's what advertising agencies want you to do, because then they make more money. They also realized that they needed to get someone to do all this marketing for them. So they needed to hire someone. So in 1985, they recruited a young and bright employee. This person had 2 years work experience in production planning and market research. He'd worked alongside marketing, and he'd worked alongside advertising agencies, and he'd worked for 2 years in the drinks industry. Pretty good set of experience, you'd think, for what they wanted him to do. I'm talking about myself. I'm sure you realise that. So I joined this company, Bulmers, in 1985, responsible for the brand that you've just seen. Despite having no working experience on advertising or working with advertising agencies, my new boss needed me to make a decision. And that decision was about advertising. They've been working, before I arrived, on this new advertising campaign. So a few weeks after I joined, my boss asked me to review the new campaign and the TV commercials like you've just seen for Apple computers, and decide if we should produce, make the films of the new advertising. So a few weeks into the work, I was asked to go down to London, so a couple hundred miles away, go down to London to meet the advertising agency. Now I'm from the client, and the client is always meant to be very important. So they looked after me, nice lunch, a few drinks, and in the afternoon they made their sell or their pitch to me about the new advertising. So they showed me their new advertising idea, not produced. And you do that normally, they've got a board or some visuals where they're explaining the advertising to you. So, you know, had a very nice lunch, been very well looked after, showed me this new advertising, and I said, so Phil, what do you think about this? It's great, isn't it? Everyone likes it. And I'm sitting there thinking, actually, I don't understand it. I don't understand what this is all about. And I had two choices. I could either say what I thought, which is, I don't understand it, I don't get what the idea is, or, well, everyone else likes it, so they must be right, because they've got more experience than me. So, yeah, fine, let's go and produce it. So, what do you think I did?
If everyone likes it, so will everyone else.
Yeah? So you think I went with everybody else?
Yeah.
And you made a mistake.
It's very easy to follow me, isn't it? So, yeah, I decided to go with everybody else. And next month, the month after, we started producing 2 TV commercials. I'd got lots of experience, hadn't I, in producing TV commercials? 0. But it was all pretty exciting because you go to the shoot, as it's called. This was 3 days off-site. I actually can't remember what the commercials were about. That was such a good advertising idea. I do remember, which is the only reason I've got this visual, I do remember that one was set in a British pub. You know? So that's the bit I remember. So 3 days out with a film crew and the people from the agency, being made again to feel very important. And you know, we produced 2 films. And you know, after they produced them, about a week later, they come and present you the commercials and say, you know, we think this is terrific. What do you think happened?
It was horrible.
Yeah, very good. It was horrible. Yeah. So what do you think happened with it?
Probably something didn't go as planned.
Yeah.
You get fired?
I didn't get fired. Yeah. I survived this one. Yeah. I've not yet been fired, but probably someday I will. What do you think happened? Okay. It's sorry?
You got a new budget for you.
I didn't get a new budget. Actually, it made a major dent in the budget because what happened is the films got canned, which basically in the can, thrown away. So 2 films produced, never made it to the TV screen, cost $400,000 equivalent. Yeah. Not a bad first good mistake, yeah? $400,000 worth, yeah? For me, I think 4 learnings came out of that I try and try to stick to as I've gone through my business life. The first is trust your instinct or your judgment. It's not always right, you know, but trust it and then speak up about it. If you don't say that, if I'd said, actually I don't understand it, then either someone would have helped me understand it, or I'd have continued to not understand, and then maybe we wouldn't have wasted $400,000. So trust your instinct, and what we call speak up. We have one of the values we have as a company is telling it as it is, or tell it like it is. Yeah? So it would have been much better if I told the agency, maybe politely, but just said, you know what, this advertising, I don't get it. The third point to make up there is about responsibility being aligned with capability. I didn't have much capability at judging advertising. I'd been given no training, I'd had no practical experience at learning how to judge and assess advertising, and yet straight away I was being asked to judge some advertising and make the decision about whether we do or don't produce the commercials. So it's important that people's capability is lined up with the responsibility that you give them. And the fourth one, which I've produced in my time, not produced, but been a part of maybe at least 50, 60 commercials a year at one stage in my career, is great advertising sells itself. If you need to have someone explain the advertising to you, and someone from the agency, no one does that for the consumer who's watching it on the TV. No one's sitting there saying, well, you know that ad, this is what it's meant to represent and what it's meant to say to you. So great advertising sells itself. It never has to be explained. And most people, when they see a great advertising idea, they get it straight away. So those would be my 4 learnings out of this particular case study about the, in this case, the bad apple. Okay, let me turn to my second little story. This second story is about new products. Now, I have no idea, for those of you who do the management program, whether this looks anything like how your taught about what goes on with new products. And I'm not saying it's necessarily everything that one does. But we're now in the early 1990s. I left rather than was fired from Bulmers, and I'm working for this company called Kraft, the company that you know I essentially worked for 25 years. By then I'd worked a number of years in marketing, and I was now responsible, this was in the UK business, for new products and new business development. So this was really all about looking at consumer trends, looking at consumer habits, looking at consumer needs, identifying new brands or new business opportunities with which to grow the business, and also as a multinational, understanding what strengths we might have as a company that we could bring into the UK market, and what opportunities that we could leverage, what might be working elsewhere. And amongst, I can tell you, 20, 30 different things that we looked at. Actually, it was a great job. I spent a lot of time traveling around the world, looking at what was happening in the business in other countries, what was working, what was not working. But all that business travel and analysis and everything else helped us identify what we thought was a really big opportunity in the UK for fat-free products. So products that don't have any fat in them. This, by the way, isn't the pack, as you'll come to realise later, of something that was launched, because I couldn't find it anywhere. You can tell this was another failure or mistake. But in the UK at that time, there were emerging trends for people being very concerned about the amount of fat that they were eating. And as a company, we had some superior technology from our R&D group on how to produce fat-free products across a range of product categories. So the technical team, the R&D, research and development team, had actually produced fat-free products on mayonnaise. You all know what mayonnaise is, I'm pretty sure. Salad dressings, you know what salad dressings are? Things like Thousand Island blue cheese vinaigrette dressings that you'd pour over a salad. You won't know what the next thing is, salad cream. Any of you got any idea what salad cream is? No, you need to have lived in the UK to understand what salad cream is. It's also something that's poured over salads, but it's a very British thing. So we produced fat-free versions of all those products, and also we're working on fat-free products of margarine. So imagine the margarine that you might spread on bread or whatever, so margarine and cheese. Imagine fat-free cheese. We did a huge amount of market research, talking to consumers, and we researched everything as a range. So this whole range of cheese, margarine, mayonnaise, salad dressing, salad cream, whole range. You know? And as I say, we weren't quite ready with the cheese and the margarine, but we were ready with everything else. And in the UK, these mayonnaise and salad dressings and salad cream, the big time for sales starts from May, when we get to our short little British summer, when we do at least eat a few salads. So we decided to launch with the mayonnaise, the salad dressings, the salad cream, so that we could be on the shelves in May. Back in, I don't know when it was, 92, 93, something like that. So we launched. We launched this range called Kraft Free Choice, which was a range of fat-free mayonnaise, salad dressings and salad cream, and we went to market. The mayonnaise went on the mayonnaise shelf, the salad dressings went on the salad dressing shelf, and the salad cream went on the salad cream shelf. Yeah? So in 3 separate locations. The retailers, you know, retailers are Rodich, MacArthur, Idea, those are the retailers, they welcomed us, they loved us. They loved us because the big competitor in mayonnaise had about 2/3 of the market. And normally when the retailers have a company that is, I'll say, dominating a market, they don't like it because they don't have the power. So they welcome someone who's going to come in and try and weaken the big dominant company. So they welcomed us. They said, come on, yes, we'll give you the space on the shelf, and we launched. And we had a pretty good start, pretty good trial. So trial is when people try the product for the first time. And then two big things happened. Anyone guess what happened?
Well, the saying goes, trial and error. I guess error came sooner or later.
Okay. What kind of error do you think happened?
People started to look after their health and eat fat-free foods, but they didn't like the idea of it, actually. Same as today.
Okay.
Many are concerned about their health, but they don't do anything about it.
Any other thoughts as to what happened?
Maybe the retailers use their power to change something about it.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Did you hear that? That's telling it as it is. Okay, actually the taste didn't suck. It didn't suck that much. But, I mean, there were by the way, my first company that I ever worked for was a brewer called Bass, big British brewer, and they produced a non-alcoholic beer, yeah? Non-alcoholic lager. They relaunched it probably about 6 times, yeah? Because, I don't know, there's something about beer which is that most people like it to have some alcohol in it. You know? And no matter how much they tried, they just couldn't get the taste to be like regular alcoholic stuff. So there was something about the taste. I'll come back to that in a moment. Quite a lot of trial, but there wasn't that much repeat purchase, or not as much as was expected. That was one thing that happened. Yeah? And if you don't have repeat purchase, you don't build the business. Any idea what the second thing was that happened?
Products were separated.
Sorry?
Products were separated.
Products were separated.
Should be together.
Good listening skills at the back there. Yeah. I'll come to exactly what the implication of that was in a moment. The second big thing that happened is called a competitor. Someone's trying to take your space and take your market, and they've got 2/3 of the market. And they came and they whacked us. What we thought they might do in terms of spend, in terms of buying all the space in store, they did about 10 times bigger. Because for them it was a major threat to one of their core businesses. The competitor was a company called Hellmann's. Hellmann's mayonnaise does exist, I think, a little bit here. It's not the leading brand. So they spent massively to protect their market share and their market position. That combined with some things I'll come on to about taste meant that our business went like that. So we cancelled the launches of cheese, we cancelled the launches of margarine, we reduced the spend that we had on the mayonnaise and dressings, and it became a bit of a niche business. So here again, 4 learnings. The first is that the research that you do needs to reflect the reality, and this is to the point about they were separated on the shelf. We researched a range, and the consumer expected to see a range, but what they actually saw in store was something here, something there, something somewhere else. So what we researched wasn't what they experienced. Okay? So the first big learning was research what the consumer's actually going to, I'll call it, see, touch and feel. The second learning was about understanding the real motivations of retailers. They weren't actually really that interested in us. They were interested in weakening the dominant player in the market. So it taught me a lesson in thinking through really what's the motivation that the people we sell to have when they accept our offer. The third was about competitive reaction. It was probably my first big wake-up call about not being arrogant, not thinking that we can do everything, but then really needing to anticipate what the competitor is going to do when you come in and try and take their market share. Because the bigger their share, the more important that business is to them, the more they're going to react. If it's a business that's not important, they may not react very hard. But if you try and take a business that is core to someone, the most important part of their business, they'll react, because that's their business. They'll defend it to the end. And the fourth point is, say Slavica, it didn't suck. Trust me, the mayonnaise was actually quite good, but health benefits in food products are nice and good, but if you haven't got taste that's as good as the regular thing, most people won't compromise. Some people will, and you'll have a bit of a niche business. So in food products and drink products, taste is king. So if you haven't got the taste right, forget it. So that was the second story. Happy to hear a couple more?
Yes.
Okay. We move on a little bit in time. And it's still the 1990s. I still haven't been fired. I'm still working for Kraft. But I'm not working in marketing anymore. Someone must have seen the light and said, this guy's making too many mistakes in marketing. Let's move into sales. So I was working in sales. In actually what we already called then customer marketing, which is the kind of people who are working how to sell things or market things to retailers. And one day the sales director, and I'm still in the UK, the sales director in the UK approached me and said to me, Tesco, and some of you may have heard of a retailer called Tesco. They're now the #1 in the UK. They're the #1 across quite a few countries in Europe and in Asia, who were then, at that stage, they were #2 in the UK. Tesco had just been on their own business trip to the States, and they'd seen a range of, wait for it, fat-free cakes. Okay. These didn't suck in terms of taste, as you'll see in that. They found a range of fat-free cakes from a business that, as Kraft, we had in the US called Entenmann's, and they wanted to launch in the UK. So they wanted to launch this range, and the sales director needed a project leader. That was me, because by then I'd at least built some skills in terms of project management. Didn't know anything about cakes, but knew a bit about project management. So this story is about it's about project management, and it's about a business partnership with a leading UK retailer called Tesco. First thing you do when you've got a project, correct person, is you form a team. You give it a name. Actually, I don't think we gave this one a name, yeah, but that's probably the fatal mistake. Actually, this one wasn't really a mistake. It was so formed a team. Marketing, sales, the retailer, because this was a real partnership. This wasn't a them and us. We were in this together. The reason, by the way, that they wanted to launch these fat-free cakes is because they saw that they could grow the business versus the little bakery, independent bakery store. So you know, like the Picaras that you have here? So they could see how they could, as a retailer, grow their business and get people to not go to the little local Picaras or bakeries, but actually buy their cakes in the big supermarket. Yeah. Now, until this time, my experience of working on new products was kind of fairly conventional. So you normally have to persuade the retailer or the customer to list or to take the product. You then building what we call the distribution, so the number of stores that will kind of take this this new product. You develop advertising and promotions that advertising agencies, kind of love you to produce, don't they? Yes. And you do all of that so that you can generate awareness to your brand, and so that people will try it. That's simply how it works. And you clearly need to have a fairly detailed forecast of how much you're going to sell, so that you've got enough product available, so that everything's there for these consumers to try the product. Simple? Okay. Not quite as simple in this case, because these products had roughly 5 to 7 days shelf life. Okay. That's okay, you think? But they're produced in the United States. So I get to a retailer in the UK. Anyone work out how you get around that little problem? Concord would be one answer, but I'm afraid the P&L, the profit and loss, would not stand for Concord flights of cakes. Actually, what happened is that we installed a facility in the States to freeze the cakes, so they were produced, they were frozen, they were shipped across the Atlantic into a port in the west of England, brought in, we had a frozen factory in the west of England, brought into there, stored frozen, and then when Tesco ordered, they were controlled defrosting, just like you do at home, sold to the retailer with the 5 to 7 days of shelf life that you can do. So that was how the supply chain worked. Yeah, quite an interesting supply chain. But you can imagine there was some time involved in baking the cakes in the States, freezing them, shipping them across the Atlantic, getting to Bristol, in this place in the west of England, and then calling the product off against the demand. You'll understand why the supply chain is quite important to understand here. Because we launched, and we launched obviously with the full support of Tesco's. Yeah, I mean they were in this like us. So just to illustrate the point, and I'll talk a little bit about this in a moment, and it's just kind of made up numbers, but to illustrate, this is what the sales actually looked like versus what we forecast. So I'll start with the red line, which was the forecast. So all my typical experience on new products is you build your distribution, and as you build your distribution, your sales increase and people try, then it drops off a bit, and then assuming it's a good tasting product, the sales will then increase again afterwards. So that's what the red line is there to illustrate. Yeah? Okay. Actually the blue line is what happened. Because when you've got a partnership with a retailer, day one, you've got full distribution. Day one, you've got brilliant visibility on the shelf. Day one, you've got all the material kind of promoting the brand in the store. And in the UK, people on average do their weekly shop every 1 to 2 weeks. So we've got what a shopping cycle of 2 weeks. So anyone who's going to see the product is going to see it, and if they're interested, try it within the first 2 weeks. So the first 2 weeks, the sales were actually about, if I remember right, about 10 times, if not more, than we expected. And the product was pretty good. So after those first couple of weeks, it dropped down because people have tried it, and then the sales started to pick up again. And after about week 4, you can see what happened. We got into out of stocks. You can't get the stuff across the Atlantic quick enough. What we had kind of sitting there in our factory in Bristol wasn't enough. So for the next kind of, I seem to remember, 5, 6, 7 weeks, we were in and out of stock with different products within the range. Never able to keep up with the demand. And I can tell you it was hell. When you launch a product with a retailer and you can't then supply, they make your life misery. I thought I knew a bit about pressure, but when you've got someone from a retailer screaming at you down the line and saying, sorry, giving me an answer next week isn't good enough, I need it in the next hour, it sharpens the mind a bit, because every minute, every day, they're losing sales. So are we, but they're really losing. You know? So 5, 6, 7 weeks of absolute hell trying to recover the stock position. And you never recover it, and you never recover the full demand. And by about, I don't know, week 14, 15, we got back to regular supply, regular sales, but with a somewhat unhappy retailer, because as far as they were concerned, they'd lost a massive opportunity versus what they could have had. So here again I go for 4 learnings. The first of which was it really helped me understand what's really key in terms of generating trial. It's not all this lovely advertising, disrespect. It's about distribution and visibility in store. That's what counts. If you haven't got the distribution, if you haven't got the visibility, you can have the best advertising out, you're not going to sell a thing. You know? So it really brought home to me how important distribution and what we call in-store visibility, as well as the kind of support and feature that the retailer will give you. The second thing it really taught me was the importance of forecasting. And forecasting to really break the forecast of what you're going to sell down to the different elements. How much product do you need to, we call it, fill the pipeline? So before it's even sold to the consumer. So how much in our warehouse, in their warehouse, on the shelf, actually just sitting there on the shelf, how much pipeline, as we call it, stock do you need? How much do you need for the trial? And then what percentage of consumers are going to repeat their purchase? And what are you going to get there? Second repeat, third repeat. So really going into the detail of all the elements of forecasting the offtake. The third learning was about speed. I thought I worked for a fast-moving consumer goods company, fast-moving, you know, not compared to a retailer. You know, they have a different angle on what speed is. As I say, it's answers in hours, not days and weeks. And as I say, the impact that you have then in lost sales. And it also taught me a bit about customer management. And the point that I'd say face-to-face is best. You know, when you've got a problem, you can talk all you want over the phone or sending emails, but it makes so much, it's so much better to just get in the car or whatever and go and meet people face-to-face to try and resolve it. You know? So it taught me some lessons about the importance of face-to-face and also the importance of teamwork in resolving the issues, because that period of time when we were trying to resolve the stock out, it required a lot of people to work together to actually solve the problem as quickly as we could. So that's the third story. There's another story about fat-free, and it was about cakes. And now let me turn to my last story.